Hello, everyone. I'm Meredith, and welcome to the Brahmakumaris Miami Facebook page, where we do all kinds of programs and seminars on everything to do with spirituality. And tonight, we're part of the series that I have been doing, lucky enough to be doing, just called A Conversation with Friends, or Spiritual Conversations, whatever you want to call it is fine. But I do want to say, before I introduce my amazing guest tonight, that this is pre-recorded, and is airing tonight, but it was recorded earlier in the week, or the day before, I should say. So anyway, I'm delighted tonight to introduce you to someone who's actually been an old friend from way back, and his name is Nathan Katz. If you are interested in anything to do with spirituality and India and Buddhism, Hinduism, and Judaism, then stay tuned, because Nathan Katz is a Jewish scholar who's best known for his work in Indo-Judaic studies. And he's written so many books that I can't even name all of the books that he's written over the years that do have to do with Judaism and have to do with India, the Jews of India. And he even, quite a few years ago, he convened a seminar where at Oxford University, where people from all religions, India, Europe, Israel, all came together to really think about spirituality and what it meant in their lives. He was also very important to mention to you that he was an FIU professor for many years, and something that I'm very, very moved by, and I know pretty well some of the work that he's done because I've been to some of the programs, founder and director of the program for the study of spirituality at FIU. And I know that that is something that has drawn so many people who are not just searching, but interested in this whole study of spirituality. So welcome, Nathan.
Thank you,
happy
Meredith.
to see you. And I'm just amazed, you know, how you're retired, but you're not retired. You continue to do so much. And one would think you'd run out of topics, but that doesn't happen, does it?
Ideally, when you retire, you get rid of your job so you can really focus on your work. And that's what it's been.
Beautiful, beautiful. And your work over so many years has been, in a way, introducing people to topics and research, through your research, that they wouldn't even be aware of. And I think one has to do with the Jewish culture and just the whole Jewish life that had happened in India over many, many years. How did you come upon this? I was wondering, was this by accident? Did you read something? Yeah. What happened?
Yeah, I'll tell you a few little bits. My mother, may she rest in peace, told this story about me when I was 5 years old. I don't remember this. I can't say it's true, except my mother told me, so it has to be true, no? And she told this story that one Friday evening, I came down to the Shabbat dinner table, 5, and I said, my family, I have an announcement. Okay. I said, on my first opportunity, I said, I'm going to go to India. Okay. I have no idea, Meredith, where that came from. I wish I knew. So many of my India friends are quite certain they know exactly why that happened. I'm not quite so certain. But India has been part of me since before I was even thinking. I don't know why. So that was one element. The other is this. We were members of 2 synagogues when I was a kid, an Orthodox and a conservative. And I remember in the conservative synagogue, run Rosh Hashanah, the high holy days, they had a beautiful choir there behind where we keep the Torah scrolls. It was a beautiful old building in Camden, New Jersey, my hometown. And I remember when they would start to open the Ark, which is the cabinet where the Torah scrolls are kept, at the holy place, the choir sang, because it was a high holiday, they sang a lot, and they said, holy, 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 kadosh, 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 the Lord of hosts is holy. And I remember that sound, very beautiful. And they were just about to open the doors of the ark. And as they started to crack the doors, I saw light emanating from out of the ark. I didn't know what I asked my mom, wow, where's that light? They have lights in there? No, nobody knew what I was talking about. I didn't know what I was talking about. Now that I've been studying for many years, I know exactly what I was talking about. We talk of the light of Torah as the heart of Jewish mysticism. And even though I was a little kid, I had a taste. I had something in me that drove me towards mysticism, towards spirituality, and towards India. Yet the spirituality I first knew was in my synagogue. So that's the beginning of all this. Then let's see what happened. So I decided I was interested in India. I was interested in spirituality. I went to India a few times. I decided I'm going to become a professor of Indian religions because that's what seemed to matter to me the most. So I did. And since the late 1960s, I've been going back and forth to India with some regularity. In fact, during this pandemic plague that we're suffering, it's the longest time I've not been in India. It's about 2 years, and something's missing in my heart. So I was on a sabbatical, and I was in Sri Lanka, where I was doing research about Buddhist monasticism. My wife was with me. My wife got a job with the Christian Science Monitor as a writer photographer, and you'll see some of her photographs during this hour or so. And we're doing our work there. I'm working on the Buddhist material, and she's writing stories in the early 80s for her newspaper in Boston. And we're working hard. So we said, let's take a couple of weeks vacation. Okay. So I remember hearing that in this little town city called Cochin, now called Cochin, in South India, there's a very old Jewish community. And a couple of friends that I visited there. It's interesting. Well, let's go to there. Kerala, I understand, is beautiful. Let's go see. So we went. It was beautiful indeed. And we went to the synagogue. We met the Jews there. And I tell you, I love India. I love being Jewish. And here these people were both. And it just absolutely floored me that they were there. They'd been there a long time. They're very proud Jews, and they were very proud Indians at the same time. And that got me. So Ellen, my wife, and I realized that here's this old community of Jews in South India, which nobody in America hardly ever heard of. Now people know more. And we could see that by that time, a community that had once been sizable was now very diminished. And we learned that in the past 20 years from when we were there, most of the Jews of India had made migration to Israel. Mm-hmm. So they're leaving India, and I did lit searches, and there's no book about them, just a couple of articles in not popular at all journals, academic journals. There's hardly anything written about them. So we're thinking. Now, I had my whole trajectory. I was an assistant professor. I wanted to learn tenure. I was translating things from different Buddhist languages and doing what I was trained to do. And I said, wait a minute, this is what's fascinating me. I remember we're back in America, and I'm sitting there on the porch of our house. I'm banging my head against the door. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Why? I said, look, I got to earn tenure to earn a living. I have a trajectory. I'm getting known in the field of Buddhist studies. That's what I need to do. But I'm fascinated by these Jews in India. I got to learn about them. But I can't do that if I'm doing this. And my wife said, what's your heart? What do you want to do? Where's your heart? I said, clearly to study these Jews of India. says, that's what you have to do, damn the consequences. Well, that's what we did. And we got a Fulbright, went back to India, lived there for a year in Cochin with the Jews, praying in the synagogue, eating their food, living with a family in a Jewish house in Cochin for a year. And okay, that was and it was hard work. The weather is very hot. It wasn't so comfortable, but it's work. You do your job. So we got back to America. Well, first we went to Bombay, now Mumbai, and I wanted to eat some beautiful food that I hadn't eaten in a year because everything's very strictly kosher in Cochin. I had no notion of keeping kosher at the time. So I knew they had prawns, shrimp, and lobster. So I go to this seafood restaurant I knew in Mumbai. I get the menu. I look at it, and I just start to laugh hysterically. My wife thinks I'm nuts. It's not the only time. And, why are you laughing? I said, I can't eat this. I just can't eat it. And I knew in less than an instant that living in a traditional, observant Jewish community for a year without my being the slightest bit aware of it, it entered into me. It entered into my blood, my heart, my mind. And I knew right then, I'm never going to eat that stuff again. And we're going to keep kosher and we're going to do all these things. I was amazed. I had no expectation. So that's what happened. So we went to India because I was interested in spirituality, spent time in ashrams, monasteries, meditating, yoga, learning Sanskrit, learning the languages, translating text, doing that in depth, really. I was a professor of all that. And suddenly I'm interested in something else, which is not the smartest thing to do, but maybe it was. It absolutely changed both our lives, living there for a year. People, I'm an Ashkenazic Jew. You probably see that from this and the way I look. And my parents came to America in the early part of the 20th century. And I remember when I was quite young, overhearing a conversation between my grandparents and some uncles and my parents about what happened in the Holocaust, about what happened to some of our family. I was very young, less than 5. And I remember hearing this and I was, what are they describing? Wow, what the horrors. I don't have to tell you, everybody knows now. But that's the first I heard of it. And it just absolutely distressed me. So what I want to say with this is, I think it's true. Every Jew, especially any Jew whose origins are in Europe, has the Holocaust in here somewhere in the background that shapes everything we do and experience and think, that makes us distrustful, that makes us maybe arrogant, and that does all kinds of things. It's who we are. And who history made us, and who the stories we told. Victims, horrible victims, terrible victims who had just been mistreated by everyone.
So not just by the Holocaust, you're talking about going back in history to all of Judaism.
Yes, Mary. Yes, because when I studied the Holocaust, which I studied seriously in graduate school, of course, you see it's just the worst example of an ongoing reality. But in India, I learned immediately that that's not the case, that India had nothing to do with the Holocaust, that the Jews there, they knew about it, they heard about it, they read about it, but it wasn't in here, and in here, the way it is for us. And they're very different than us in that they're very proud of being Indian citizens. Of course, India is a great country that has always treated its Jews beautifully. They loved India, and they're very proud Jews. I remember going to a restaurant, they say, I'll have this vegetarian, only vegetarian. You see, I'm Jew and I keep kosher, and they announce it to everybody in the restaurant. And not only do they feel good to announce it, everybody says, oh, that's great, you do this, we love you. I wear this when I go around India. I can't tell you how many times somebody's come to me and said, excuse me, are you from Israel? I said, no, I'm American. And they say, please, have some tea with me. Sit down. I've never spoken with a Jew. I'm curious. I want to know about your people and your religion. So in that in that kind of environment, it's a 360 or 180-degree turn from the unspoken environment of Jews in the Western world. And that is profoundly important for Western Jews to understand. We know how we've been treated in Europe, and to a lesser extent in the Muslim world too, unfortunately. But now we're trying to make people know that it's not always like that. There are other people in the world, people who love us, respect us, admire us, and among whom we've lived in peace, security, tranquility, and prosperity, and religion for a long time. And that changes the way we understand who we are. Okay,
I think it's
so
very
that's how I got
powerful.
into it. That's how I got
I
into
think
it.
this is very powerful, what you're saying, because I do feel, having been born and raised Jewish, that there is this, like you say, this victim mentality, and it's understandable because of all that we know Jews have been
It's
through.
true. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and now being, for many years being a student and one who gives classes with the Brahma Kumaris, to hear this, for me, this is kind of a little awakening, to realize how India, because I too have loved India. I certainly haven't studied about India like you have, except through my meditation. But to know this and to know how the Jews were treated, and not just there in India, but like you say, Asian countries do not have the same way of treating Jews. And so that could sort of change the way Jews feel about themselves, right? Or what they've been through. That it hasn't been all about suffering everywhere. So I think that's very important. What I want to ask you about is this: you're such an interesting blend, Nathan, I mean, it's like that you have like the two worlds, would you say, merged in your soul, because you had this wake-up call or awakening, and you went back to being Jewish, but now you weren't strictly a Buddhist before, but yet you were studying Buddhism, right? So
I think there were times in my life when somebody asked me, what is your
Yeah.
religion? I would have said Buddhist.
uh-huh.
There were some times there in the early 20s, it fit in nicely with some rebellion, as well as a very real spiritual quest. So,
Yeah. Sounds to me that you're always on this spiritual quest. You're just always in tune with this. And I love what your wife, Ellen, this amazing photographer, said to you, when you weren't sure about what to do. And she said, follow your heart. I get the feeling you do the same, right? You just somehow, you might have some doubts, but you follow your heart.
I don't think I would have had the courage. I would not have had the courage. When you go to PhD and you're starting out in this very cutthroat competitive world, I wouldn't have had the courage to throw all that in the air and see what happens.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people are, I think, searching today, a lot of people, whatever religion they are, you could be Christian and then you're maybe practicing Judaism. You could be Jewish, you're practicing Buddhism. What's your advice to people today who are sort of, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, they study this, and just to keep going? Or what do you say to people?
Be patient, be patient, be patient. Spiritual unfolding is a very gradual process, and it's an unpredictable process.
Yeah.
You just don't know where things will lead you. So do what you're doing.
Maybe be open, just open and let it unfold by itself.
Look for pointers. Look for guideposts. Look for things like that. Because there are all kinds of message coming to us from coincidence, from experiences, from people we meet. Just keep open. For me, it became very clear that to get really serious about any spiritual path takes great commitment. And there's a teaching in Zen about not mixing up the Dharma. That is, if you're doing this practice, don't also do other practice. Stay with this if you want the results, so to speak. So while my whole intellectual life is so much shaped by Hinduism, by the Dharmic religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, so very much. But when it comes to my practice, and I do meditate, I do some things like that. I teach regularly at the Shivananda Yoga Ashram. I'm involved with the Dharma world for sure, deeply. I taught at Naropa University, a Buddhist college. My son went there and got his master's a few years ago. So, I want it to be part of my life, and I want it to be part of my son's life. Yet, I think following a path it is the way to see the results, to get the benefits, to get those experiences that spiritual traditions offer.
So if you're mixing too much, it's okay to go to different things, but you're saying if you're just jumping in and jumping out, you never really embrace.
What you do, the practice as opposed to the ideas. I think it's most effective, just in my limited experience, to do one thing, one tradition. And that's all. But you don't close your eyes. You don't close your mind. And during this pandemic, we've been very fortunate with this, that my wife and I have been studying a certain kind of Kabbalah known as Bratzlover Hasidism, which probably means nothing, but it doesn't matter. It's a kind of Jewish mysticism. And we've been studying with the rabbi every week the core texts of that sub-tradition, and it blows my mind. Let me give you a little example. Reb Nachman's writing. Meredith, you know what a dreidel is, of course, but
of course.
It's a little top
yeah.
that we spin and play games for the festival of Hanukkah. It has meaning, but that's all you need to know. It's a little top, it spins, and kids play with it, right? You don't think about it. Reb Nachman talks about the dreidel as the dreidel of reincarnation. And he says, so it spins and it falls on one side or the other side. And he talks about that dreidel. Everything is constantly in flux and change, every ephemeral thing, every surface thing, everything. And of course, the point of the spiritual path is to see deeper than that, to get in touch with that which is not just in flux. Call it what you will, reality, God, Brahman, it doesn't matter.
Do you believe in reincarnation?
I think so.
We've come back, we continue.
I'm not convinced, but my point was, it's a very important part of Jewish mysticism for sure, and in ways that most people don't realize. It affects normative Judaism in terms of what the liturgy is and some of our beliefs. Most Jews, if you say reincarnation, is nonsense. Maimonides said that. Yet, it's there in the corners. It's there very much in the tradition, and in Kabbalah, in Hasidism, it's core. It's a core understanding of reality. So I should believe it. I think I more or less do, and that certainly explains what I said when I was 5 years old.
Well, I think what you're saying though is it's not a matter of just believing something because you heard it or you read it. You have to have an experience, which you've had these spiritual experiences, that have kind of moved you forward.
Yes,
and be those moments like you saw the light. And so that's something you can't take away, when you have that experience.
No, you start with some intellectual understanding. I think that's always the beginning, but then that has to ripen into very direct, immediate experience. And those experiences aren't common.
No, but you've been searching. I think your soul, or you, the soul, have been searching. So these experiences just come to you. That's what I'm feeling as I talk to you and hear you.
Sounds
I want to move along to about a very special relationship that you've had over many years, the Dalai Lama. And I think that you studied with him and somehow became very good friends with him over a long time, and have actually introduced many, many people to.
I would very
amazing, remarkable man. Yeah.
To just call him a friend is anyway. I wouldn't.
Okay, it doesn't feel right. Okay, sorry about that.
I met him first in 1973, as a matter of fact. I was living in Sikkim, which is in the Himalayas in eastern India,
Yeah.
studying Tibetan. There's a Tibetology Institute there. And I needed to extend my visa. Of course, Sikkim was very politically sensitive, so I had to go all the way to Delhi to talk to the government and big shots and all this. All right, so I'm in Delhi. Phone rings, and it's one of my friends from Sikkim, a member of the royal family. Oh, yeah. Would you like to meet the Dalai Lama? I said, oh, of course, I wouldn't want to meet the Dalai Lama. He says, I'll pick you up in 15 minutes. We're going to go see him. All right. So we go. He's staying at the Shok Hotel, which used to be the biggest, fanciest hotel in Delhi. And I'm like, how old am I? 22, something like that. 25, 24. I was a kid, and I was just about to start graduate school. I was preparing for graduate school by learning some Sanskrit and some Tibetan in India. And I wanted to stay in Sikkim to really, because it's a great place and a great place to study. I was learning with the Karmapa Lama. I was learning with Nyingma Dorchen Lama. I was having a great time and learning Tibetan and reading and all that. I wanted to stay and just do my work. So I'm taking to see the Dalai Lama, and I'm like, oh my God, you know. And in less than 5 seconds, I was completely at ease. He just saw my nervousness, it seemed to me. He looked at me, and it's this amazing way of looking at you. And just the way he laughs. He's laughing at my nervousness, I could tell, and it blew it away. And I felt like I'd known him all my life. And so I'm getting ready to leave. He says, no, don't leave. Just stay with me. I have some things to do today. Come along with me today. So I did. Now he went to this big field, and he did a mass conversion ceremony of 10,000 what we call Dalits, formerly called untouchables, to convert to Buddhism. And I just sort of was tagging along with him for a day. I couldn't believe it. Then back in America, as an assistant professor, his first visit to America was 1979, if I recall. Yeah, and he's speaking at the Newark, New Jersey Museum, which has a great Tibetan collection of all things, and I'm invited to speak there when he comes, you know. So I met him there, and I was speaking at Harvard. I went to take courses there in Dharamsala. I spent about half a year in Dharamsala, where he lives. I was studying Tibetan and reading Tibetan texts at the Tibetan library there, and he was giving teachings on the Bodhisattva path, which is magnificent stuff. I went to his teachings. And then every time I was coming to America, I'd somehow get to see him. So finally, we just moved into this house we're living in now in Miami Beach. It was 1995. We just moved in. I'd been at FIU for 1 year then. And so we got a house. We're unpacking the boxes. My little son was about 99, he's 7 years old, maybe less than that, 4 years old then. Yeah, 4. Unpacking, and the phone rings, pick it up. It's Dalai Lama. Now it's his secretary, but I'm here with the Dalai Lama.
Yeah.
Whoa, what's up? He says, His Holiness is at the Miami Airport Hotel. He's on his way to South America. He's got a few hours to kill. Would you like to come and hang out? In different words, of course. So we're there and having a lovely talk. And I've always had amazing conversations with him because he's interested in the kind of things I know too. And of course, I'm worshipful to the wisdom he has. So we're with him for about an hour. And at the end, I don't know where, I'd been to FIU 1 year. So we're just starting up the Department of Religious Studies. I was brought in to chair that. And I say, Your Holiness, would you come to Miami to receive an honorary doctorate from my university? We'd like to honor you. And shockingly, he said, yes, I will. Great. I'm excited. I'm elated. I get home. I go, oh my God, I had no business doing that. This was a Sunday, I remember. What's a professor doing inviting, universities just don't work that day. So Monday morning, first thing I called the president, President Maidik, who I'd met and I really liked. And I said, sir, I did something that's pretty extraordinary. I hope you're not angry. I did something that involved the university. He said, what did you do? I said, well, the Dalai Lama is going to come here for an honorary doctorate. And
Wow.
he laughs, fantastic, wonderful. And then, wait a minute, you can't do that. Don't worry, we'll go back and do it the right way. So of course he was enthusiastic, and he always said that was the greatest day in FIU's history in 1999 when he did come, and he also came again in 2004. And then an amazing thing happened. It was 2009. I just had a new book of memoirs published. I remember that. I remember very well. And I was looking forward to getting active in lecture tours and marketing it. I thought it was a nice book. And I remember where I was going with that. So it was one of those state of Florida budget shortages, and of course, State University. So I get a phone call in my office saying, "I'm sorry to tell you this, but we're going to have to eliminate your department. We just can't afford it. And we'll save $600,000 a year if we do this and that, and we just, don't worry, you'll have a job. Tenured faculty will keep it somehow or other." But I was heartbroken. I mean, it was just before Easter and Passover, and I'm there. It's a Passover Seder, and all of us in this whole happy time for all Jews and Christians, this horrible news. So what am I going to do? What can we do? What can we do? What can we do? So I made it a plan to meet every board of trustee member at FIU. It took a lot of effort to get the appointments. I spoke with everyone. But I also wrote to the Dalai Lama, because he had come and gotten an honorary doctorate in 1999. Now it's 2009. I said, look, this is happening, and it's not a good idea. Would you please write a letter to my deek? You know him. He knows you. So nothing, quiet. About a month or 6 weeks later, in my email, there's a message from the Dalai Lama's office, and there's a letter attached. So I open, he says, please read the attached letter. I start to read the letter, and it's perfect. He says, President Maidik, I have great regard for your university and for this department that our friend is starting, and this and that. And yes, it's important to study religions, and you should do it for these reasons. Okay. And he says, I understand finances. I understand that money is short. The state has only so much. So here's what I'll do. Enclosed is my check for $100,000. And I will come back to FIU and help you raise money to keep that department alive. Now, I'm sitting right where I'm sitting now. And by this point on reading the letter, I was on the floor. Literally, I just fell off my seat. I was blown away.
Amazing. It's just beyond amazing.
I catch my breath. All right, I figured out what to do. I sent that letter, a copy of that letter, to everyone in the media that I knew, which is quite a few people, and to a lot of people I didn't know. And within 2 days, that story of the Dalai Lama giving money and supporting this little department in a religious studies, whatever that is, in this university no one ever heard of, and the Dalai Lama is supporting it. Insane, right? Insane.
It's just an unbelievable story. It's a story that's almost sounds like it's out of a movie, Nathan, but your life is out of a movie.
Anyway, when I found out,
we could talk all day. I think I've gone way over my time, way over my time. But Nathan, I could keep going with you. So many questions. I'm going to ask you one more question, and I'm sorry to say goodbye, because you're a fascinating man with important messages and just not just information, but experiences to share and information, that is life-changing. Everything about you with your work and your books and your relationships with people like the Dalai Lama and leaders. But what do you think needs to happen now in the world? When you look at all the religions and you look at just, the uncertainty of the world and the hostility and the anger, what do you think could help things the way they are, could change things?
Watching your mind. We don't know as much as we act like we know.
Yeah.
And if you watch your mind a while, in prayer, in meditation, however you get to see, when you're trying to focus on this, your mind's doing that, right? If you're trying to pray, your mind's there. If you're trying to meditate, your mind's there. All this goes on. And you learn pretty early in the game that just what goes on in your mind is a bunch of BS, basically. We don't know much of anything, really, really. And somehow, and if you could just, if we could hold on to that, I guess it's a kind of humility or a kind of skepticism about our own seriousness of our own thoughts and mind. If we realize our thoughts are ephemeral and not of great value, then my hope is we don't take our opinions, especially political, so seriously. I think that's the problem. And we take our opinions so seriously that we come to hate people who don't share those opinions. And it's not only here. It's not just in America. I was amazed to see what's going on in Burma, because I know Burma a bit. I've written about Burma, and the divisiveness in Burma is something that's very uncharacteristic, just as the divisiveness here is uncharacteristic. It's an extremity. Don't think your thoughts are so solid. That's all I have to say. That's it. That's it.
I understand what you're saying, and I think it's monitoring the mind, as you're saying, and to just not let the mind go wild. And that's actually a very important part of the Brahma Kumari's teachings as well. And, get rid of these thoughts. I mean, begin to work. It all starts with the thoughts, doesn't it? What we're thinking, and to be able
just
to
don't get so caught up. Don't get so intense about your beliefs. That's all. That's all we need to do, in my opinion.
So we need let's just hold on to that and maybe spread that message. Be aware of your thoughts and who you are, and
about them. Keep a sense of humor.
And be as accepting. Sense of humor helps, but also be as accepting as you have been, of religions, of studies, and to me, what I take from you is follow your heart too. That's
my wife. So you're following
but
the wise person.
You live it, Nathan. Thank you so much.
A great pleasure.
Thank you for taking all this time, and I hope you'll come back again. I know you could. I know you've always been in demand. People would love to take classes from you and learn from you and hear from you. And again, it's just a pleasure to get to know you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Meredith.